If you're new here, welcome. This is a place where ordinary family moments take a hard turn and one decision changes everything. Today's story starts at a wedding with music playing, glasses raised, and a sentence that should never have been said out loud. I was standing at my son's wedding when the night shifted. Not loudly, not all at once, just enough that I felt it in my stomach before my head caught up. My name is Rati, 72 years old. I had been pretending I was fine. That's something I'm good at. I stood there holding a glass I hadn't finished nodding when people smiled at me, keeping my shoulders relaxed. Weddings do that to me. Too many eyes, too much noise. Everyone watching who belongs where. He came up close. Too close. I smelled the champagne on his breath, sharp and sour, like it had been sitting too long. Give me your penthouse. I need it. That was it. No build-up, no softening. Just dropped between us like it was already decided. I didn't answer right away. I actually thought maybe I'd misheard him. Maybe the music was louder than I realized. Maybe weddings make people say stupid things and forget them later. I stared at his tie instead of his face. I stayed quiet longer than I should have. He waited. Not patiently. Confidently. I've been quiet my whole life. When something feels off, my first instinct is to smooth it over. Tell myself it's nothing. Take responsibility even when no one asked me to. I felt that old habit kick in. The one that tells you to keep the peace. The one that tells you to make it easier for everyone else. But the way he said need stuck with me. Not please. Not help. Need. Like the answer was already yes, and I just hadn't caught up yet. The room kept moving around us. Laughter. Clinking glasses. No one noticed the ground shifting under my feet. The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revenge ATA. It is inspired by real emotions, real conflicts, and real choices people face. But it is told as a story meant to explore consequences, not offer advice. He leaned back, smiling now like this was settled, like I was already packing boxes in my head, and that was the moment I realized something was very wrong, even if I hadn't found the words for it yet. I started talking. Too fast. Too much. Like I always do when I feel cornered. I told him the penthouse wasn't some extra place I forgot about. I told him I bought it after his father died. I told him I'd downsized once already and wasn't doing it again. I said the word mine more times than I meant to. He didn't interrupt. That should have warned me. He just smiled. Not warm. Not cruel. The kind you give a child who's explaining something obvious. He nodded at the right places, eyes drifting past my shoulder, already bored. That's great, he said easy. I know you worked hard. Then the smile stayed, but his eyes didn't. This is different. My phone started buzzing in my purse. Once. Then again. I didn't look. I already knew who it was. People had a way of sensing weakness, like blood in water. I kept explaining anyway. About my work. About the years I stayed late. About how that place wasn't luxury to me. It was quiet. It was mine. I heard myself sounding defensive and hated it. He checked his watch. I'm not saying forever, he said. Just until things settle. I stopped. Because that was the same line he'd used when he borrowed money years ago, when he moved back in, when I paid off debts he never named. My phone buzzed again. Louder this time. I finally pulled it out just enough to see the screen light up with his name. Then I slid it back without answering. Honestly, this is the part where I usually fold. Where I tell myself family is complicated and I'm strong enough to carry it. I thought about the checks I'd written without asking questions, the calls I took late at night, the messes I cleaned quietly so he wouldn't look bad. He watched me think. Let me do all the work. You're alone, he added, like it was a fact, not a warning. This makes sense. That was the moment something shifted. Not enough to stop me from doubting myself, just enough to notice how patient he was being, how sure. I realized I was trying to convince someone who had already decided I owed him. It didn't stay between the two of us. That's how these things go. One quiet conversation turns into a group project. An aunt I barely talked to touched my arm soft, like she was checking a bruise. "He's starting a family," she said, voice low. "You understand that." Someone else stepped in closer. A cousin, maybe a friend of his. I didn't recognize her face, just the way she smiled, like this was already settled. "It's temporary," she added. "You won't even notice the change." The bass from the speakers thumped through the floor steady and loud, like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. Every time it hit, another sentence landed. "He needs space. Kids change everything. You don't really need all that room." No one raised their voice. No one looked uncomfortable. They spoke carefully, politely, like they were doing me a favor by explaining my own life back to me. I tried to respond once. Started to say something about routines, about doctors nearby, about how moving at my age isn't just packing boxes. The words came out wrong. Too slow. Too personal. They slid right past everyone. He stood there watching, not defending me, not joining in either, just letting it happen. My phone buzzed again in my purse. I didn't check it. I already felt outnumbered. For a second, I almost gave in. I swear I did. I pictured myself sorting drawers, deciding what to give away. Telling people I was excited for a fresh start I didn't want. I've done harder things. I've swallowed worse. And then something in me locked. It wasn't anger. It wasn't pride. It was the sudden clarity that no one here was asking. They were assigning. They had already divided my life up into something useful. I pulled my arm back. The circle didn't break, but it shifted, just a little. I let the silence stretch longer than was comfortable. The bass kept pounding. Someone cleared their throat. That was when I understood how alone I was in that moment and how much they were counting on me to make it easy for them. I stopped talking. That surprised him. I'd been explaining myself my whole life, filling in gaps no one asked about, softening things so they'd go down easier. This time, I didn't do any of that, no. Just the word, no extra sentences to lean on, no apology attached. The room tilted, not physically. Something else. The kind of shift you feel in your jaw when you realize you've been clenching it too long. Mine ached sharp and sudden. He laughed. Not loud, not angry. A short sound like I'd missed the punchline of a joke we were both supposed to be in on. He glanced around, searching for confirmation like someone would nudge me and say she doesn't mean it. "Come on," he said, lowering his voice. "Don't do this right now." I didn't move. Didn't step back. Didn't step forward either. No. That was when I saw it clearly. The penthouse was just the hook. The real issue was that I'd stopped playing my part. I'd stepped out of the role where I made things easier and quieter and cheaper for everyone else. His smile flattened. "You're being difficult," he said. Not angry yet. Still controlled. Still trying to keep his footing. I felt the pressure around us again. The expectation that I'd fix it. That I'd laugh it off. That I'd explain my way back into line. I didn't. The silence stretched. Long enough for people to notice. Long enough for him to feel it slipping. That's the thing about control. It works best when no one names it. When the person on the other end keeps cooperating out of habit. I could feel his patience thinning. The careful tone cracking around the edges. Somewhere behind him, someone shifted. Someone whispered his name. I stayed still. Jaw tight, hands steady. I wasn't arguing anymore. I wasn't negotiating. I was resisting. And that was new. It happened faster than my body could react. 1 second, he was standing there, jaw tight, eyes hard. The next heat exploded across my face. A sharp crack. Like someone clapped right next to my ear. My head snapped sideways before I understood what was happening. The taste came after. Metallic. Bitter. I pressed my tongue against my lip and felt the split. The music didn't stop. That's the part that still gets me. Someone near us inhaled sharply. Another person laughed too loud, too quick, like they were trying to smooth it over. Chairs scraped. No one moved toward me. "Don't," a voice whispered from somewhere behind him. "Please don't make a scene." I steadied myself against the table. The edge felt cold under my fingers. I kept my eyes on the floor because I didn't trust what would happen if I looked up too fast. He spoke again, lower now. Controlled. "You pushed me." That did it. Not the slap. The sentence. Around us, people pretended not to see. Faces turned away. Conversations restarted in fragments. Someone reached out and tugged lightly at my sleeve, then let go like they'd remembered it wasn't their place. I lifted my head slowly. My cheek throbbed. My mouth tasted like a penny. No one asked if I was okay. No one told him to step back. That silence settled heavier than the hit. It pressed down on my chest, made it hard to breathe. I felt something inside me shift, not break exactly, but detach. Like a rope finally snapping after being pulled too tight for too long. This is the moment people talk about later, I thought. The part they'll soften when they retell it. The part where they'll say it was complicated, that emotions were high, that weddings are stressful. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. Red smeared across my skin. I straightened up. Not because I felt strong, because standing there bent felt worse. That was when I understood something clearly for the first time all night. Words hadn't been enough. Silence hadn't protected me. And whatever was coming next would not be handled quietly. I didn't scream. That surprised people. I could feel it. They were waiting for noise, for tears, for something they could point at and explain away. I didn't give them that. Someone pressed a napkin into my hand. White. Stiff. I brought it to my mouth and felt it shake. Not from fear. From the effort of staying still. When I pulled it away, red had soaked through the corner. I looked at him then. He was breathing hard like he'd just finished a race. His hands were clenched at his sides. He didn't look sorry. He looked irritated. Like this had taken longer than he planned. I spoke slowly, not because I was calm, but because I needed every word to land. "You just lost everything, starting with me." The words felt strange in my mouth. Heavy. Real. I hadn't practiced them. I didn't have a plan lined up behind them yet. All I knew was that I wasn't going to crawl my way back into that silence. Someone gasped. Someone else said my name, sharp warning. I didn't look at them. He scoffed. "You don't mean that." I folded the napkin once, twice. My hand was still shaking. "I do." That was it. No speech. No list of consequences. I wasn't threatening him. I was drawing a line. He stepped closer, lowering his voice like that made it private. "You're overreacting. This is family." The word landed wrong now. It didn't soften anything. It sounded like leverage, like a debt. I shook my head once. Small. Final. I'm done begging. For the first time since this started, he looked uncertain. Not scared. Not yet. Just off balance. Like the ground had shifted and he hadn't noticed until now. I turned away before anyone could grab my arm or tell me to think it through. The napkin was damp in my palm. I left it on the table, red side up. I didn't know what starting with me would cost. I only knew it was going to cost him more than he expected. I left without saying goodbye. No explanations. No looking back to see who noticed. I walked out the same way I'd walked into rooms my whole life, quiet, trying not to inconvenience anyone. The difference was, this time I didn't plan on coming back to smooth it over. That night sleep didn't come. My body was tired. My mind wasn't. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, the house too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes every thought louder. 3 a.m. came and went. The keyboard kept clicking. Short, sharp sounds in the dark. I started with the obvious things. The ones I'd told myself didn't matter. Automatic payments I'd set up years ago and never touched again. Accounts with my name still attached even though I wasn't using them. Access. I'd never bothered to revoke because it felt unkind. I made a list. Then another. Some names surprised me. Some didn't. I remembered conversations I'd brushed off. Requests framed as emergencies that never quite ended. Promises that had turned into expectations. A message came through while I was working. Not an apology, a reminder. We need to talk. I didn't answer. I called my bank in the morning. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. I asked for changes, limits, confirmations in writing. The woman on the line didn't ask why. She just did her job. That helped more than I expected. By afternoon, I'd shut down things I'd been quietly carrying for years. Not all of it. Not yet. Just enough to feel the weight shift. This wasn't revenge. I wasn't punishing anyone. I was stepping back into my own life after years of standing just outside it, holding the door open. I felt strange about it. Guilty. Relieved. Both at once. Later that day, my phone rang again. Same name, same insistence. I let it ring. For the first time, I wasn't wondering how they'd manage without me. I was wondering how long it would take them to notice I was gone. The first call came before noon. I let it ring while I stood at the sink, staring at nothing in particular. By the time it stopped, the screen showed one missed call, then two, then three. The tone changed fast. The messages stopped sounding sure of themselves. Shorter, softer. Words like confused and urgent started showing up. Someone else called after him, a voice I recognized but hadn't heard in years. Careful, polite. We just want to understand what's happening. I didn't answer that one either. By afternoon, the calls stacked on top of each other. The counter climbed. I watched it tick up like it was measuring something important. Not anger. Not guilt. Pressure. A text came through that made me pause. We're having trouble finalizing things. Not he, we. That told me more than he meant to. I imagined him pacing, the smile gone, the confidence leaking out through the cracks. I could hear his voice in my head lower now, trying to sound reasonable, trying to sound like the version of himself that gets doors opened. Another message followed. Can we talk tonight? I put the phone face down on the table. This wasn't strength. It didn't feel like strength. It felt like fatigue, the kind that settles into your bones after you've held something up for too long and finally let it drop. Late in the day, he tried again. This time, a voicemail. He spoke slower, like he was choosing each word carefully. Let's not do anything we can't take back. I listened once, then deleted it. The silence stretched. Long enough to notice. Long enough for him to start filling it with apologies that didn't quite apologize for anything. I didn't respond. Not because I was trying to teach him a lesson, because I had nothing left to explain. When the phone finally stopped lighting up, I realized something quietly unsettling. He hadn't needed my forgiveness. He'd needed my access. I answered on the fourth ring, not because I was ready. Because the phone had been quiet all morning, and the silence was starting to feel heavier than the noise. His voice came through softer than I'd ever heard it. Careful, measured, like he was walking across thin ice. I've been thinking a lot, he started. Things got out of hand. I waited. The tea in my cup steamed, untouched. I didn't mean for it to go that far, he continued. There was a lot going on. The wedding, the pressure. You know how it gets. He kept talking. About stress, about love, about how families hurt each other without meaning to. He said he was sorry in a way that slid around the center of the problem without ever touching it. I let him go on longer than I should have. Old habits die slow. At one point, he said, "You know I would never really hurt you." My grip tightened around the mug. The tea had gone cold. I told him I needed him to stop. He paused. I said, "I'm sorry." "You didn't say for what." Silence. Not the thoughtful kind. the kind where someone is deciding what they can afford to admit. I lost control, he said finally. But you know I love you. That was as close as it got. I closed my eyes. I felt the shake in my hands then. Small, annoying. I hated that part. I hated that my body still reacted even when my mind was done. I'm not continuing this, I said. My voice didn't sound angry. It sounded tired. Don't do this, he said quickly. We can fix it. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I ended the call. The screen went dark. The room felt larger without his voice filling it. I sat there for a while, hands wrapped around a cup that had gone completely cold. Whatever strength I'd found didn't feel brave. It felt lonely. I'm still in the penthouse. Same keys, same door, same view I worked for. Some mornings the traffic hums below, and it sounds like breathing steady, indifferent, alive. I make coffee. I stand by the window. I don't rush anymore. Some days I wonder if I went too far. That thought still shows up uninvited. It sounds like my own voice, just younger, the one that used to fix things before they broke. I let it pass. There was no reunion. No final sit-down where everyone cried and hugged and promised to do better. There was a message once short, careful. We should talk someday. I didn't answer. Not out of spite. Out of honesty. I learned something I wish I'd learned earlier. Peace doesn't arrive with permission. You take it, quietly. And once you do, a lot of people don't like it because your silence used to be useful to them. A friend stopped by last week. She looked around then at me. You okay? I'm getting there, I told her. And I meant it. Here's the part I'll say out loud because pretending otherwise kept me stuck for years. Love that costs you your safety isn't, Jay. Family that only works when you stay small isn't family. Walking away doesn't make you cold. It makes you honest. If you're watching this and something feels familiar, if you've been paying for peace with your own dignity, listen to that discomfort. Don't rush it. Don't explain it away. Start with one boundary. Then keep choosing it. I don't know if I'll ever reopen that door. I just know I won't pretend nothing happened. If this story hit close to home, stay with the channel. Share your experience in the comments. Stories like this don't end clean, but they do change lives when we talk about them.